Morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, March 5. This is, we have a few things to accomplish tonight because we had to cancel our last meeting. So first, I need everybody's concurrence. We're going to change the budget just to correct a typo. It says 2025 budget, but it's the 2026 budget. You all see that at the top? All right, so we're good with that. That's corrected. And with your permission, I would like to switch the funding requests to the top of the agenda, get that out of the way. That way we'll give Mika a little bit of time to show up, and then we'll start the budget conversation.
Make a motion to move the budget, the funding request to the beginning of the agenda.
Second.
No objection? Everybody's okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you. It'll be a little, and we'll also do the minutes. We'll get that all out of the way first. It doesn't need a further motion. We're okay. So let me begin with, everybody have the budget, the funding requests in front of them? I need a motion to approve line item transfer 2425-21 for $5,000.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
You want to address this, Tony?
Certainly. This is for, to record the receipt of a micro grant that the town applied for through our local council of governments. And it's for education and training classes for adults and safety classes for kids for bicycle training.
Any questions? All in favor? Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. I need a motion for approval of line item transfer 2425-22 in the amount of $2,250. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Tony, you want to explain this to us?
Certainly. The Witness Stones project is a project by the Woodbridge DEI Committee. The total cost of the project is $3,750. The town has $1,500 of funding in its budget. This line item transfer is to transfer to the project expense account $2,250 in donations that the committee anticipates receiving for this project.
Any questions?
I just want to comment that I think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm glad we're doing it.
I'm glad we're doing it also.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting.
I know.
Any questions? Comments? All in favor?
Enthusiastic support.
Any objection?
Ditto.
I'm sorry, any
Ditto.
opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, good. Thank you. I need a motion to approve line item transfer 2425-23 in the amount of $4,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions about this? This is pretty straightforward. I just want to say that I think it's such a pleasure to have the hard copy of the newsletter back in the house, because I learned all kinds of things that I wouldn't have otherwise looked up on the website. So very happy that that's happening.
Question, do we have enough money next year to cover this?
Yes,
So
we
don't-
do.
So we're not.
It was
gonna-
originally
So
cut.
we don't have to come back about this time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have to do it over again?
We
There
do,
you go.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious. That's
Yeah.
Yes, definitely,
And
yeah.
kudos to
Very good.
whoever put it together. I thought it was really well done. Any other questions? All in favor?
all. Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve funding request 2425-24 in the amount of $34,700. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a second. This is for approval. We don't like leaky air handler water supply systems anywhere. Tony, you want to tell us about this?
This is for the, as it says in the memo, for the library, and there's, in addition to as Susan indicated, the supply water line pipe leak, we have several zone valves throughout the building that have started to malfunction and need to be replaced. The building was built in
We decided it was 2021-ish, right?
2001?
I mean, 2001-ish.
Is that about right?
Yeah, ish.
Yeah, we did it. Turner
That's
did
it?
it.
Oh, Turner, yeah,
It
okay.
was an ish.
So it's, they're over 20 years old.
It's over 20 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
So it needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
Things do. change and things do.
Things do deteriorate, correct.
Right,
And
so-
these dollars are coming out of contingency.
Correct.
Yeah, so,
Library's only 20
okay.
years old.
Any other questions or concerns?
I just have one question. I
Do
mean, I
the addition.
understand
Oh, the
that
addition.
at the bottom of it, it was, transfer 34,700 from contingency to building repair line, that makes sense. The addendum in the amount of 3,500 to insulate the pipes, is that built into that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because they originally had requested less.
Okay.
And they added
That's,
3,500.
that's why I was just confused, so
Yeah.
it was already built in.
It was built in, yeah. I can understand the confusion
Yeah,
now,
good
yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I will make a motion to approve line item transfer 2425-25 in the amount of $5,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, you want to tell us
For-
about this?
These
Tom?
are our donations for Earth Day.
So we're just accounting for the donations?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I count for the donations on the revenue side of the budget, and then you're transferring it to the expense side of the budget to spend the funds on various items for Earth Day.
And as long as we have a chance to give a plug, when is Earth Day? Nobody knows?
Womp womp.
April.
That doesn't help.
End of April, 28th, isn't
April.
it? Something
No,
like that. It's
no,
the
that's not right.
Put it
the
on my
last
calendar.
Saturday?
We should have asked Allison when she popped
She
her
would
head
know
in.
that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know.
All right,
the
never
answer to
mind.
that.
Delete that part of the conversation. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. I thought it was earlier than that, actually.
Well, officially Earth Day is the 22nd, but I don't know when we're doing it in
Right,
town.
right, that's,
I want to say the 26th. 26th is my
26th?
guess.
Yeah.
okay.
26th.
26th.
There you go, okay.
Okay,
It's on my phone on the 26th.
of April.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
We're all done with that. Let's approve the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes for a regular meeting of January 16th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any additions, corrections, concerns?
Second, now, let me do this.
I think Donovan
Oh,
seconded it.
okay, yeah, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? No? And any abstentions? We were all there, right? Yeah, okay. Can we do these collectively, the joint meetings? To approve? Or
You
do
can
we-
do them, the Board of Selectmen does them collectively.
Yeah, okay, so I will make a motion.
Wait, before, just for clarification, because I wasn't at one of them, but I listened in, so I don't know if I should abstain because I wasn't there.
No, as long as you've listened in, you're allowed
Okay.
to vote.
Okay, to approve the minutes,
And
right?
reviewed the, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. So I will make a motion to approve the joint Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance budget presentation meetings of January 21, January 23, January 28th, January 30, and February 4, all 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additions, corrections, objections, concerns, anything
They were
about
very well done.
anything?
I do
No.
have to say, whoever did them.
Uh,
Good job.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work to keep track of all that.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any, we already accounted for, so there's no abstentions. Okay, good. Okay. So that accounts for all the administrative part of this meeting. So now we can go back to item number 1, review possible action on Board of Finance fiscal year 2026 budget. Now, for clarification, we're not voting on anything tonight. Tonight is when we ask questions, get clarification, find out what the Board of Selectmen did in greater detail, hopefully not punch each other for any reason, or anybody else.
No promises.
Put up your dukes.
And maintain decorum, and go forward, and just so that, we're gonna actually have Tony make this presentation, I think that makes the most sense. And unlike the way I usually do it, which is I try and move things along quickly, I want everybody to make sure you're all heard and we get to ask all the questions. There's no public comment, I should state for the record, so it's just us kids, okay? Sir,
Okay.
where would you like us to be?
So the first, there's a series of documents that we uploaded, and they include the tax calculations, the budget summary, the revenues, the a budget line item detail, the capital plan, and the, I did this other one, it's increased by category, which sort of gives you the increase by major category. I would start with the summary.
Okay.
Okay, and just a
So
little bit
that's
about
called,
the.
Where is that?
It's the fourth one
Board of
down.
Selectmen 2026
1, 2,
budget summary.
3, 4. I have control sheet of that.
Oh, you have to go into the budget folder that says budget Board of Selectmen
Donovan,
recommendations.
help Beth.
Am I on the wrong
Excuse
page?
me, we're having
This one?
a,
Got it, okay. I got it, yep, number 4.
thank you, Donovan.
Thank you.
It helps to have younger people.
Yes.
Okay.
I got it when we
That's
arrived,
ageist.
and then I lost it.
saying, I'm just saying. Thank you, Donovan. Okay. Tony.
So the board has until the end of March to make its recommendations to the town for the preliminary budget hearing. Historically, you've done it at your March meeting, which is the 20th. So the first is the summary, which has all the Board of Selectmen recommendations in it. So the Board of Selectmen recommended a budget of $61,640,964. That's the total expenditure budget. We can go through each line item, each department if you'd like. The non-tax revenues are, so that's a 5.73% increase over the current year. The non-tax revenues, which is essentially back tax collections, department fees, grants, interest income, those are a 4.45% increase, $6.4 million, which gives you an amount to be raised in taxes of 5.88% increase of $55,229,227. So that's essentially how much the town, you're asking to raise, or an additional 5.88% in taxes to balance the budget. Typically, we evaluate and review the mill rate increase. In this particular instance, because the grand list is going up 44.6%, the mill rate actually goes down 28.97% to 32.98 for real estate and personal property, and 32.46 for motor vehicle. So that's the current budget as recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
I think probably one good place to start is the increase by category.
Sorry, Tony, can I just ask one question? Just because
Yeah,
people
any
have asked
question.
me,
Yeah.
given that we have this big jump in the grand list, if we were to keep the budget at 0, which of course we can't, it's just not possible because we have contractual stuff,
Uh-huh.
what would be the mill rate?
It would be
if-
about 30.
30, okay.
Yeah.
So we're going up to about 2 again.
Right, right.
Thanks.
So maybe just give us the highlights on the, or what the Board of Selectmen did, I should say, not the highlights.
So if we go to the page that's increased by category, let's open that for just a second. So the top section has the requested budget, and that has that broken down by the town departments, which was a 5.95% increase. This is the requested budget now. The Amity Board of Education, 7.85%. Woodbridge Board of Education, 6.12%, and the capital budget and debt service, 48.44%.
That's what was requested.
That was requested.
Beth, do you have it?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Donovan, that's 2 merit badges you just earned here. Yeah, go ahead.
The Board of Selectmen budget has the town departments at 4.24%, so you can see there's a reduction there. Amity, I follow the Amity budget as it's going through its process, as the printing of this was 7.32%. I'm not sure if, if they've made any further
No,
adjustments, or?
they recommended, the finance group recommended the 7.32.
Yeah, okay, okay.
The 7.32?
Yeah.
Okay. The Woodbridge Board of Education is 5.85%. There was a slight reduction there. And the capital budget and debt service, 4.38%. So that's what makes up the 5.73% expenditure increase. So you can just get an idea for each section of the budget and how much each one is increasing.
Everybody understand that?
Okay. I think the first area would be helpful to review is the 6-year capital plan,
Okay.
and I can review some
Got it.
changes.
Phew, okay.
So the first department is the Board of Education, and just by way of reference, the first year is the year that's funded. Years that would be 2026, 27 through 31 is a plan
Right.
only. So it's just really the first year you're looking at. And of the first year, there's various funding sources. And the funding sources are at the end of the plan, but a good way to reference it is if there's no number next to it, or a 1, that's the operating budget. That's being funded with tax dollars. Like a 3 would be debt service, 2 is grants. So that's sort of how you follow the funding, and that's totaled at the bottom of the document. So for the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen removed all of their requests, and in light of the fact that they're in the process of planning for a renovated or new facility, added an amount for a new facility and removed all of their requests.
So, everybody understand that?
For 28,
Yep, got it.
We're in
for
the-
year 28.
Yep.
Right.
You know, so there's nothing now, but
Put it
it's-
all on the plan side, exactly.
Right, correct,
Exactly.
right,
And that's what the 3 is that it's gonna go to bonding.
correct,
Okay,
exactly,
$50
right.
million in
50,
2028.
that's just a sort of a placeholder
Got
until
it.
we get more information.
Okay.
But it's probably a low placeholder, right?
Probably.
Well, depending on
I
what
don't
they
know.
end up,
I
right?
shouldn't say probably. It depends where it
What the
comes
end,
out.
what the
Yeah.
end recommendation.
For the Board of Selectmen budget, the technology upgrade. See, there's a footnote for the technology upgrade. If you look at the 1-2,
Yeah.
look at the footnote, that would be $26,000 for general fund, that's taxes, $20,000 in grant funds from the grant from the council, what's it called? Cablevision, yeah. So we're working with our staff members here and our camera operators to fix this room up, right?
Right. Bring it into the 21st century.
That's right. The selectmen added $1 million for demolition of the country clubhouse. That would be bonded. If it's bonded and it's in the first year, again, that's just a placeholder in a plan because any bonded item has to go through a town vote.
town
So,
meeting and all.
town meeting, all that.
Special town meeting.
Yeah, so this is just to sort of put it in the plan. When you put it in the first year, it just creates a sense of urgency that it's something that they feel needs to be done sooner rather than later.
And my recollection is, and just for the record, that $1 million doesn't represent a firm
It does not.
estimate that
Right.
came out of a vendor. It's a round number that we're
Correct.
just using. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a very round number.
Boy, that sounded sinister the way you
No,
said
no,
that.
no, no, but it's, you know,
Yeah,
but
no, I
it's gotta
understand,
get
I
bid out
understand.
and all that stuff, but it's a placeholder.
Which
Which is the placeholder.
Right.
yeah,
Gives you sort of an order of magnitude.
it's an
of
order
what-
of magnitude number,
Right.
exactly. Okay.
Another ad from the selectmen, which is the new police facility, and the first year has $50,000 in tax dollars to get professional help, professional services to help plan for, site, locate, where would the building be, all that kind of stuff.
Lay it out.
Lay it
all that
out,
stuff.
right.
Yeah,
And then you'll see in the later on in the plan, there's $18 million for a facility.
yeah.
That's a round number, I'm assuming
It's
as
a
well.
round
That's a round
Yeah.
number too. Yeah, that's actually loosely based off of how much it costs. It was about $15 million to build a new police facility in North Branford, right
Yeah.
down the street
Yeah.
from Karen. And so we increased it a little because that was built few years ago.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was just completed.
Yeah, so we added a little for inflation.
Has it been decided that we're
It's a
getting
nice facility.
new building or
Turned out
building on
nice.
the current?
There has,
That hasn't even been decided
no,
yet.
not firmly, but I think the new facility is something that was being discussed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Tony, can you help me understand why, or what the $1 million in this year's capital, how that represents our calculations for this year's budget?
So the $1 million for the demolition? It
Correct.
has no real impact on this year's budget. It's just a planning item to say, in our capital plan, we are planning to spend $1 million to demo the building. It doesn't, because it's bonded money, I didn't plan for it in our debt service just because we haven't really formalized this as a process. So that's where it would impact us. But it's in there as a planning item.
Yeah, so I guess that's why I'm trying to figure out why
You could
is
certainly
it
put it out a
in
year.
26 versus, say, for example, 27?
You could do that. I think to make the point that this is something we need to seriously think about doing pretty soon.
And it would probably be added to whatever bonding we decide
Correct.
to do. It's not like we're gonna do.
Yeah,
a
you wouldn't do it on
bond.
its own, but you would probably add it to if we were doing other projects.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, just from a historical perspective, I will say this is not the first time that
That's correct.
this issue has come up. And
Right.
it's been kicked down the road a few times already.
Yes.
So that's probably
There's a
why
concern over the,
it's been accelerated for this year, for this coming cycle.
there's a
would be my
concern with the
guess.
risk involved of the facility.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but,
Right.
I'm just wondering if, I was unaware of the bonding aspect of it, because there is some urgency, in my opinion, that needs to be prioritized there. And I'm just wondering if this is something that would be more palatable to spread out over a couple of years, if we're not gonna bond it with something else, so that we can at least get something done in the meanwhile, before we, go to the town and ask for the whole shebang. Are there any kind of mitigating actions we can take in the meanwhile to hedge some of the risk while the greater process plays out? And I'm sure the Board of Selectmen probably had a lengthy discussion about
This is
that.
gonna be like a multi-phase project, whatever you do. First of all, you have to get all the asbestos. You gotta do a complete remediation. You just can't knock the building down while it's
Right,
there. So that's gotta happen. And then once that happens and all that, then you can, then once all the utilities and everything are capped, you're locked out and everything else, then you can take it down. But the big item right now is the asbestos remediation. Any mold, is probably tons of mold in that building right now,
Yeah, sure.
which is deadly. So and all that's gotta get remediated and all that. You don't wanna knock that down and have it fly through the air, so.
I'm betting there's a colony of vermin in there too.
Well,
Just
there's
been
probably a lot of stuff in
replicating
there that
itself over the
you
decade.
wouldn't wanna
yeah.
walk in there at night.
Or during the day.
But
Yeah.
Javier, I understand your
Oh my
question, and I
God.
think it's a fair question. I think it's beyond the purview.
yeah,
It's a Board of Selectmen question.
agreed.
It
But I
also sounds
agree
like there may
that-
not be any sort of smaller mitigation of what Dwight is saying, you have to do asbestos.
Unless you just let the vermin chew the building down, which will take another.
I guess my question was really, like, what consequences putting it in this year's budget? Because it's been in past years' capital
Yeah, and
plans, right?
there's no.
So we did it
consequence.
again this year,
Yeah,
and
there's
like,
no, other than to put it on the plan to make it part of the discussion, to make sure that, it.
No surprises.
Right,
right, but
but,
part of what discussion, right? Because we're not funding this right now.
right.
So
But
where
when you
does
look
this
at-
go
when you
from
look
here
at-
now that it's in the plan?
So it should stay in the plan until either you decide to fund it or you don't think it's a project you want to do.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
and presumably, because we put it into this year as a placeholder, should something go to bond this year, we know that we'll just add it into that bond.
You'd have to go through the process
I
of
mean,
getting
go
it
through the
approved
process
first.
of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's remember, the Board of Selectmen has put it in.
Right.
This
Yeah,
is their
that's fine.
recommendation.
right. You could-
It's just a place, all it is just a
You know,
placeholder. It's
we
there.
haven't added it, they've added it.
Right.
So obviously, this is on the horizon of what they're thinking about. So I just want to make sure that we have that clear.
Thank you.
But I do understand your question, and it's a good one. See how important it is to have a young person bend
He
down,
did
pick
it.
up the, I know, it's good. Go ahead.
He dropped it, it wasn't me this time, I could have gotten him.
The next would
Need
be
to
building
rescue you.
maintenance.
Yep.
There was a reduction of the town hall water intrusion and library water intrusion, just because we're not exactly sure on either case what's causing the problem or if exactly how much it would cost to actually fix the problem. It could
Okay.
be minor or major.
You have to investigate it.
Right, so that's what
That's-
the 20,000 each
That's the big
project
thing
is
is
for.
you gotta investigate, you had to dig a little bit, find out where the issues are.
Right,
And then you can come up with a recommended solution and bid it.
correct, which is why we reduced the 150 to 20 for each location and then go from there.
And after we do that and then get a value, would we take it out of contingency?
Or we could say, all right, here's the plan, put it in next year's budget.
And I'm just curious, there's no money in there for the center building water intrusion, because that one corner gets flooded every time it rains, around the electric room and all that.
Uh-huh.
Tons of water goes in there. But I'm surprised Brad hasn't brought that up.
Yeah,
But that
he
was-
hasn't,
but-
no.
But that was part of our
Yeah,
You said
Our
that's just
building
the
committee
center building. The
recommendations.
center building is where that is.
center building, yeah.
It's in 2028 as a placeholder at 40,000, if I'm reading it right.
That's just gutter.
No, that's the
Oh, no,
gutter
I'm
and
sorry,
window
I'm
repair.
reading, I'm reading it
windows.
wrong, never
Yeah.
mind. Sorry.
Do we need to figure out why that's occurring?
It's
or-
just,
Or we know why it's
It's
occurring, we
just-
just have to fix it.
I mean, the foundations
Got it.
were done 100 years ago.
Okay.
So, and they weren't really, back in those days, the waterproofing wasn't like they were today and everything else.
Right,
Water,
right.
water finds its way through everything. So-
But is that something that should be done this year? I mean, again, we've had this conversation, so are we,
It's not our decision.
No, but we can bring it up,
we can bring it back to
we can
them.
bring it
Right.
back up as an item.
Right.
I just, I'd like, if we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna do water intrusion, that would be also one
Uh-huh.
I would like to look at, that's all.
So so is that something we'd ask Tony to go back to the Board of Selectmen? Or-
no, they're done with the budget, so if you want to add something, you can add it in when you recommend the budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
which is at the next meeting,
Correct.
which is at our
Right,
next meeting.
correct. So you can make a motion
Okay,
or
all
to,
right, okay.
add X
No, it's
dollars
just-
for
that's
whatever.
all.
So the fact
Yeah.
that Brad didn't bring it up, right? Should
I
we?
thought he
he
did bring
did.
it up.
He has brought it
He
up.
did bring it
Okay,
up.
On the
somebody
capital
said he did
presentation,
not.
he
I
did.
thought he did too.
So what happened to it?
Where did it go?
Well, there was, if you recall, there was, I don't know that this solves the issue, but there was the discussion about, because we're looking at a bigger picture with the center building.
Right.
Right,
Right.
Just like we're doing with the education, the school, that we're gonna take some of the minor or smaller repair items out until we get a sense of what the big picture is.
Okay.
Because we don't wanna throw good money after bad. That was the conversation with
Got
the
it.
Board of Ed, and I believe that was the conversation with the center building as well.
But this flooding isn't something that, I mean, it has to be fixed.
that's just something we can talk about, that's all, at our next meeting,
Yeah.
maybe we make a recommendation to add some money for that.
Just to investigate it.
Just, right,
Yeah.
you don't need a ton
I
of
will,
money.
I
to
will say my
investigate.
adding money is not exactly the goal here. Okay, I'm just saying. But, well, it's clearly a problem.
Right, it's an issue.
It's an
I
issue.
think it really should
So
get
where,
addressed.
what we decide to do about it, Tom is
Right.
correct.
Okay.
We're not voting on
We can talk about it
anything,
at our
right?
next meeting, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right?
I just wonder, is there any information we need for the next meeting, or are we just gonna?
We'll ask
So,
Tony
if
about
you have
that.
any information you want me to get for you, or anything you want me to look into or research, just ask, and either Karen and I will do that.
I'm just, on this I mean,
So
thank you, Tony, I remember that's sort of the process for everything, but for this specific question, if what we're saying is we may add it at our recommendation.
How about if I ask Brad about it and get his
Okay,
recommendation?
that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be
Thank
good.
you, I just didn't want us to come back in 2 weeks and be in the same place we're now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're at fire.
6:30,
Oh,
Good timing.
6:30.
boy, that was cosmic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on in the
Here's
fire,
ringing.
in the fire department capital budget, the Board of Selectmen kept the 4 items at the top are engine 3, engine 9, air packs, and radio communications upgrade. Those are all leases that the town has locked into for various capital purchases and are due and payable, so there's not much you can do with those. And they kept in the fire hose. The rest of the items they pushed out a year or two.
Everybody got that?
On human services, there's the dehumidification of the center. I believe we're gonna try and do that in the current year with some funds that we have available. That's why that was removed. So we can do it in advance of the summer, which is when the humidification is a problem.
Should get done.
Yeah.
Was that part of the discussion of the water intrusion?
No.
They were talking about the center building?
No,
That's for the
this is
senior
just
center.
after, when
I'm
when
sorry,
they fixed
okay.
up the senior center,
Yeah.
we had an issue with no
Yeah.
dehumidification.
I remember now.
Because it's
Thank
the
you.
basement level,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
it's got a whole different ecosystem going on down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were no adjustments to information systems, nor to the library, nor to parks. Police was a removal of the vehicle.
Push it off a year.
Yep, pushed it off in light of the fact that there was one purchased with ARP funds.
Yeah, this past year.
Yeah. Public Works is, there was, the Public Works vehicle replacement was for, not a vehicle, excuse me, equipment replacement was pushed out into future years, because that was sort of to pay for capital equipment. And that was pushed out a year.
What was the 15,000 that was left
That is-
payment for it?
That's a good question, I'll tell you that in 1 second.
I seem to recall there was a mower or something that he was talking about.
It was for, it's for some minor equipment that he needed in the garage. It was a brake, I think a brake lathe. Do you have that, Karen?
No, I don't.
Okay. I just-
Yeah, it was just for some minor equipment purchases.
Okay.
But it looks like on Public Works, the bulk of everything has gotten pushed off.
Except for road paving.
Except for the roadway, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And they just, the Bridge and Waterways program, I'm assuming they'll just fix half of what they planned on.
Correct,
hope to fix.
yeah. Correct. Recreation, the board eliminated the synthetic ice rink.
Which doesn't mean it doesn't have terrific fundraising possibilities. Get your stakeholders, or I guess in this case, your skateholders, involved and have them start contributing. Because it's a very cute idea. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Thomas Darling House, that was first line was a grant that was funded 50% by grants and 50% by the town, so we just dropped it 50%. And finally, the compactor replacement was just pushed out a year. I think we can wait another year before we replace container. So that brings your operating budget, or the tax portion of the capital budget, from $3.5 million to $1.957580. So you'll see in the funding there, the third line bonds. See how it goes from 0 to $1 million? That's the addition of the demolition of the clubhouse.
I see it, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question on the Darling House. So 109 was requested, Board of Selectmen approved 54.6 based on a grant?
Yeah, so they are hopeful to get a 50% reimbursement of that project.
Oh, so
By
half
a
of-
grant.
Half of, okay.
Right, so
Got
they
it.
requested the whole amount.
Yep.
And we acknowledging that we would probably reduce it by half to.
By half, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So that's the capital budget. So if you go back to the summary, that's actually a reduction from last year of 0.58%.
Big picture, though, over the next decade, we're looking at some
Sizable bonded
sizable
projects.
bonding,
Yeah.
because these buildings are all struggling.
Yeah.
I think just it's important to keep that in mind going forward.
So you have $80 million in bonding
Right.
in this plan. And we currently have outstanding 20, low 20s, 22 maybe?
You remember how happy Tony was a couple meetings ago that our debt service was going like this?
Right.
Short-lived. Okay. Where are we now?
Okay, so that's that.
I think was Javier that mentioned something about a leverage risk issue with bonding? Too much debt? Or-
Yeah, you have to be careful. You don't have too much debt for many reasons. One, of course, is your debt service and your budget expense. But there's a number of reasons, fiscal health, that we look at, and that are, you just have to make sure you balance your borrowing with your capability and your the percentage of your budget. Make sure doesn't create a problem where you have payments that you can't really afford to pay.
Right.
Your debt service as a percentage of your budget is a major driver of your bond ratings.
Right.
So if you really want to have problems
You'll
bonding
pay-
things
You'll pay
in
more.
the future, and
Yeah.
it also feeds into your property value as well. So bond
And a
ratings
lot
are
of
a big deal.
municipalities have that problem.
Yeah.
Correct.
We've always been pretty
We've
good
been
about
very
it.
good about keeping our,
Yeah.
because it's once you do that, a lot of other items in the budget, even though it might be painful, you could have control over.
Yep.
But that's one item you do have no control over once you borrow the funds. So you have to be careful.
To
Okay.
get back to Public Works, it looks like it's the retro-reflective signs.
Oh, the signs, right. Right.
That's the 15,000. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay.
I mean, is the new apparatus that's planned for next year and the year after, is that under bonding, or is that?
For the fire?
Yeah, the
So you
fire,
could-
isn't that lease,
So,
or is that, how does that?
when we did it a few years ago, short-term rates were, I don't know, 1%. I mean, they were really low. So our lease rates were super low, and bonds were maybe 3.5.
Right.
So it made sense to lease, because the short-term rates were low and we got it cheap. But now I think it's sort of flipping a little. I haven't checked the leases recently, but bonds are probably low 3%, high 2s, low 3s, depending on how long you do the bonds for. Do you know what lease rates are?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. So it could be that lease rates are now higher than bond rates, in which case I would bond for it. You could certainly do that.
So we could, it varies, it'll depend when.
Right, when you're ready to purchase.
When they pull the plug.
Right, right. And so if you're going to bond it, it would be like anything else. You have to go through the process of getting authorization. And once you do that, then you can move forward with that.
Okay, what else are we looking at here?
The next one is, so I don't know if you want me to go through each department, which I'm happy to do, or does you want to just have questions, or you just want to ask me questions as we go through each?
You're on the summary again? Where are
When we
you?
go to the budget increase.
No, you go to budget.
Yeah, if you go to the.
What are the major drivers? What are, like, police, they cut
So I would
over
say-
100,000, fire, they cut over 100,000.
Right, right.
I'm just curious, just some of the.
So there's a couple items in the selectmen's budget that were put in. You'll see if you go to the selectmen's budget, 17.5%. So if you go to the detail line items, that's a good place to go. I can show you what the drivers. That's a good question, Dwight. At least that's probably a good way to go through it.
Yeah,
So is
the
that
Board
the
of-
second
I'm at
one on the list?
You mean the Board of Selectmen?
It's the second one on the list.
It's 41 pages.
It's 41 pages, but we're just looking at the first page for the moment.
Yep. It's a 300% for part-time clerical.
Right. So I'll go through some of these
Okay,
larger items
cool.
for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Drill down on this and then we'll go from there.
If he was here, he'd be able to shed some light on some of these, but I can certainly give you. One is part-time clerical. So the change from 12,000 to 40,000, which is a $28,000 increase, is for part-time staff to manage the new community center. That's what that is.
You all see where he is?
It goes from 12 to
Line
40.
503, 50310?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was one increase. Another increase is litigation. And that's to fund extra litigation or legal services that's anticipated because the selectmen want to do a charter revision. So that's what that's for.
Okay.
And they didn't make a change themselves, but from the requested, from the current year to the new year, there's an increase in general professional services. That's for a planner.
Tony, on this page, I got a few questions.
Sure, fire away.
One, I'll start from the bottom up on my notes. The town council, the difference between the prior 85 and the now 115, that's our new town council fees.
Correct. That's the, when we started the current year, they agreed to, because the budget had already been adopted, to keep the fees that we had in place, which was what we paid our previous town council. But their services are a lot more. They just agreed to not charge us more in the first year.
Okay. So that's expected to increase again in the future?
Well, I'm not sure. Not that to that degree.
Okay.
I think the first year was a large increase because they were at our rates that we had from our previous town council.
You're just catching up a little bit.
Yeah.
And are we paying them by the hour, or are we?
No, we pay
they're under-
retainer.
They're on retainer now.
Yeah, a retainer for most town-related services. If there's this, occasionally there are items like, if there's like related to like back tax collections or some things that we may get reimbursed for, some things they charge hourly, not that much. Most of it's in the retainer.
But to follow up on Javier's point, that's separate from the litigation costs.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
That's correct. So
you know,
they would charge us extra for their services for charter revision, which I'm told is a rather extensive process.
Well, I assume these litigation fees are for the,
It's for general litigation.
right,
It's for land use. It's for
Presumably
assessments.
the
for,
current lawsuit
the
that we're
lawsuit.
involved in.
current lawsuit we're
Yeah.
involved
Okay.
in for a if there's a assessment appeal. Sometimes we have
Or a zoning appeal, or,
zoning appeal.
yeah, or whatever, okay,
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
what that's all
Are
for.
we obligated to do I know we're obligated to do charter revisions periodically. Do we know why this year was the year they decided to?
You'll have to ask Mika that question when he comes.
It's long overdue in my opinion, but that's a whole separate conversation. The general professional services line,
Yes,
I know there was a lengthy conversation about this.
there was. Yeah.
Has there been any guidance from the first selectman about continuing use of the current firm?
I think he's open to evaluating that.
Yeah, because I spoke to him myself and I
Yeah.
expressed to him my concerns with staying with this.
Is this
And
the town planner?
This is Goldman and York, yes.
Goldman and
Current-
York,
the
right.
current,
But
okay.
just to interrupt you real quickly, the issue is not whether we have a planner. The issue, as I understand it, that's controversial, is who the planner is.
Correct,
Okay?
correct.
So from a budget point of view, we don't know if that impacts this figure or not.
Well, I mean, theoretically, it shouldn't, because
Shouldn't, right.
it's
Right,
a decision
exactly.
whether you think we
Exactly.
should have a town planner or not.
Correct.
However, we are in a position right now where I'm being asked to fund what could potentially be a conflict of interest. And I don't want to go into it any further than that, because it's a whole separate conversation.
Correct.
But that's just a question I wanted to ask you, Tony,
Mhm.
and I'll follow up with the first selectman again.
That's my suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Because
sounds like.
that's a big one for me in terms of the whole conversation.
Yeah.
That is my only question on
This
this
is just to
page.
fund a town planner,
Correct.
Correct.
not a name.
It doesn't
just-
obligate you to any particular town
Correct.
planner.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
just wanna make sure.
the funds,
Okay.
right.
Great.
And that's worth clarifying, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Okay. Does anything else, I mean, it's a lot of numbers. I think maybe part of the conversation might be whether or not we, as the Board of Finance, would like to see additional cuts? And if so, is there anything that we would like Tony to specifically look at? Or anything that we want to have questions about right now?
So just to illustrate, the current amount to be raised in taxes goes up 5.88%.
Right.
Should you want a 5% increase, you need to remove or cut $458,000 from the budget.
Additional.
Yeah, that'll get you down to 5%.
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to get to 3%, not suggesting you do, but if you want to get to 3%, it's 1.5 million. That could be either revenue increases or expenditure decreases. When I say revenue increases, you could increase fees, you could,
You can also limit services,
could limit services.
which, we
Yep.
all say every year, but none of us really want to do that as a rule.
Can I ask Tony, in previous meetings, we've talked about, and I don't, it's not gonna get us $1 million, but we've talked about the tipping fees at the,
Right.
Has now we're in the
Yes.
budget, we're making the decision in the budget,
As a matter of fact, I think the selectmen are, we have that on our plan to discuss, I think next month, to update the fees at the transfer station.
But will that be done in time for us to make our
No,
recommendation?
but what you can do is,
Change it later.
no, you could take an educated sort of guess or calculation and say, we'd like them to change those fees, and we hope it increases it by X, or I can give you an idea of how much I think you'll get, and,
How is it going now? How is the expenditures, how is the, we're getting
it's a little,
reimbursed?
it's not, we have a little bit of a deficit in that account currently. We had a little dip in tipping fees, but.
Is that why they're trying to maybe raise the fee a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of
Fee per
items on the
ton.
table. Raising the tip fees is one. Bulky waste is another, like those fees. And then the third is the fees for, do we want, some communities pay, like, residents pay $50, say, to access the transfer, get a sticker
For like a year?
for a year,
Or whatever.
whatever, yeah. So, if you sell 1,000 stickers, you can do the math. Or 500 stickers, however many. So some towns do that.
Mhm.
I mean, there's various ways to do,
I
and that's, all those are all
I
the
might
things.
be
that-
mistaken, but I remember there was some discussion, but I can't remember when, about possibly cutting back on the days the transfer station was open.
Yep, that's
And
another
that's
option.
obviously
That
a
was the other thing we
selectman's
talked about.
decision,
Yep.
correct? That's
Yep.
the board of selectmen's decision.
I think that's on the agenda for next meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Is
Believe-
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yes.
what- something
Instead
to
of
be
being
considered,
open
yeah.
5
Okay.
days a week, maybe
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
And their next
or-
meeting, they're
Right.
gonna have some items they're gonna
And
consider.
that's
And-
getting
and
us to the 1.5
To add some
million,
context to
but-
that, Beth, it's not to reduce cost
Right,
at the transfer station. It's that they need the manpower in
Right.
other areas of town.
but it
Right.
might have
So
to
they would reallocate that
yeah,
labor.
so it wouldn't
So
really,
it wouldn't save us any money, but
yeah.
It would be a huge help to, like, in the summertime when the Parks Department does, some maintenance on our grounds.
yeah.
That would be a huge help to them.
Yeah,
Well, the budget impact, though, is then you don't need those folks.
Eventually,
manning-
you could see some
yeah.
benefit, yeah.
right.
Yeah, but you're right, it's not immediate. And can you quantify what, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So do we know what the 5.8%, is that what you said, 5.8% increase? Never mind. I'll ask it in a minute. Any
Okay.
other immediate things that we want to address?
I do want to add,
Go ahead.
I do want to add some context when we're looking at these numbers, that the core CPI, the inflation increase from January of last year to January of '25 is 3%. So I think when we're looking at those numbers, we should look at them through that lens, because the cost of everything went up. And it's not realistic to have a zero budget. It's quite frankly not realistic to have a 3% increase budget either,
No.
because the costs of everything went up and we have needs and services that we have to provide. So I just wanted to add that little bit of context to the
And
conversation.
not only is that context helpful for that reason, but there are some things that we didn't have to pay for 15 years ago that we have to pay for now, like cybersecurity, like integration of IT, like protecting all the data that we have in this building and on the other buildings that belongs to our neighbors, you know, from all kinds of threats that are out there. And those are costs that just didn't exist 10 years ago. Okay.
Well, I'll say, I'm just torn, because I think that it's a tough year. I think that the optics of the revaluation and people worried about what, you know, I think they're under some misunderstanding of what, of the relationship between the revaluation of their house and taxes. But I think we do have to just sort of address it. So I would like to see us try to get it a little lower. I think the other thing is, I think perhaps, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I feel obliged to say this, you know, Woodbridge has supported education and should support education for a long time, but I'm looking at the Amity budget and going, we need to make some comment about the Amity budget. Perhaps. I just think it's too high. I think, again, I'm bothered by, they're doing it legally. I'm not saying it's, you know, underhanded or anything, but they don't seem to be interested in bonding anymore, and they seem to be interested in taking surplus and putting it into non-recurrent capital, and we seem to just sort of let it do it. And we heard Dr. Byer say, well, you know, we have to come back and ask for more if we don't do it right. Well, we support, you know, we support education, and I'm uncomfortable with us as a town not making, and I don't know exactly how we do this, not making some statement about the Amity budget and just sort of saying, okay, it's out of our control. If they want to do 7.3, whatever, we'll let you know, the referendum decide that. And I think we should be pushing back a little bit on that.
Well, I think we have pushed back, as I understand it. I think one of the drivers here is the fact that our enrollment has gone up more than the other two towns. So we now have a bigger share of the pot.
Well, but I think, I agree with you, Susan. I think that we have a bigger share of that 7% increase
That we have to pay for.
that we have. So it's even more incumbent upon us this year to say, hey, you know, let's, Donovan, sorry, but let's
Well,
push
do you wa-
back a little bit
Well,
on this
Donovan,
thing.
do you want to add anything about the Amity budget? I mean, I don't feel like it's our, I mean.
It's not our domain, but
It's
other
not.
than making a statement or saying,
So, a majority of the budget is contractual. There's some discretionary stuff like building improvements. But the orange folks, so I think it was 3.6% total. The 7.3 is pretty much our increase, but orange wanted a hard 2.32%, which is like a point under the
which
increase.
doesn't make any sense.
And even that was a difficult, because if you look at the actual budget and what's needed, if you try to drop the budget by $500,000, which is what came to, the only wiggle room would be either to don't fix security concerns at the schools, or start firing people.
Losing teachers,
Firing
yeah.
teachers, yeah.
Or
Which
staff, other staff, yeah.
isn't,
What was the increase last year, Tony? Do you remember? The Amity budget,
Our portion,
our portion? Just curious.
yeah, I get it, 1 second.
And also the Woodbridge Board of Ed.
While he's looking that up, Tom, to your point, that's a multifaceted conversation as well. Because as our enrollment has increased, our representation on the board hasn't.
That's a
So-
whole separate
So that
complication, yeah.
I spoke to Selectman Madonic about this last week, and we as a town are undertaking a process by which we are looking to change that, and that would give us more say at the meetings, however they would do it, whether it be like a share-based voting system or whatever. They're looking to change that for that reason, because our share of the budget keeps going up because our participation in the enrollment is concurrently going up.
Right.
So it's a good, I agree with your comments, but we're, especially for this budget year, we're limited in terms of what we can do. for him.
I agree, I just didn't know whether we wanted as an organization, as a board,
Yeah.
to make some comment. I mean, and I'm torn. I started out by saying, I support the schools, and so for me to be saying this, I just think we have to do something.
Yeah, it's always been the reason why people come here.
Right.
Because we have such good schools and, but on the other hand, I see your point as well.
Well, it's frustrating, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure that,
We don't really have much, I mean, we'll hear about it at the
Yeah.
preliminary budget hearing, but, you know.
And by the way, Orange has a larger share of the overall
Well,
budget.
they got more students overall, they have more students, but they don't add the
Percentages.
number of students we do
Right,
Right,
every year.
right.
We add
more.
a lot more every year.
So Dwight, last year, the Woodbridge Board of Ed was 3.51, and Amity was 4.53.
3.5, and we're almost at 6%
Yeah, it's
with
double.
Woodbridge. It's almost double, and it's just like, I remember in the days when Matt was here, we would say, we're not paying more than this, go back and figure it out. We'd tell them to go back and figure it out. Make it work
To the Woodbridge Board of Ed.
to the
Yeah.
Woodbridge Board of Ed.
And, it's full
Because
disclosure.
it's almost, like I said, if it's up almost 6%, we paid a little over 3 last year. That's almost double
should tell
what
them
they're
that,
asking
yeah.
for the increase for this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
And
different,
it's
that's a
just,
different
I
ask.
understand that, but it's
To the
just
Woodbridge
something
Board of
that,
Ed versus Amity,
It-
right? I mean,
right.
it's apples and oranges,
Yeah.
because we are just now, from an education point of view and budgeting point of view, coming out of a 5-year pandemic, when all of our costs and all of what schools had to do during that 4 or 5-year period literally turned their budget system upside down. We are just now coming out of it and going back to the kind of reality that we've had. And you have to face that fact also. It's not, these don't forget, in those periods of time, huge amounts of money were not being spent because of the way things were set up. They're being spent again. Because we're in the buildings. And we're even more reliant on technology than we were.
not to mention the expiration of COVID funds and all that as
Right.
well.
Correct.
COVID funds is
All
the
those,
problem.
all those dollars that came forward that softened those impacts are no longer there. This is hardcore. You live in Orange, you pay taxes to support your schools. You live in Woodbridge, you pay taxes to support your schools and all the town services we have. So I think the bigger context is why we're seeing, is part of the reason we're seeing these impactful increases, if you will.
But I don't think, but it's got to be made clear by them, because I don't think it is clear that they're asking for more because of this and because of that, you know, I understand what you're saying, Susan.
Well, and when they were
And
here
I think
making
it's got to be explained when we go to the town meeting.
So do we want more information
Well,
from them?
if you have a specific question about Amity, the procedure is you direct it to Donovan.
Right.
He's on the Amity Finance Committee. He gets the information for us and brings it back. That's how we now do it. So I would say, if you're okay with this, if you have a specific response that you would like to see from Amity on a specific line item or anything else, direct it to Donovan, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
And
that's fine.
he'll bring that back. I would say in anticipation of our March 20 meeting, I would do this sooner rather than later, give Donovan a chance to run anything by Tony that needs to be chewed on, so that we can be prepared for March 20. Okay, is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, I think that's what we ought to do. I personally would like to see this get to, believe me, I like to see it get down as low as possible, but I'm dreaming of a 4.9 or a 4.8, just so we can say that we're below 5, a little bit less
would agree.
impactful. So I'm going to direct Tony, who is here in
Who
spirit.
just left.
Who's here in spirit.
Smart man.
But I'm gonna ask him to please find whatever I believe it's around 200, I spoke to him earlier, I believe it's around 230,000 out of the out of the operating, to get it down to 4.9 or 5. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did quantify it. That's what I would like to see him tweak it down to.
I think that's a really good
I
idea.
think that's a great
And
idea.
do
Great,
it that
Susan.
way.
Yep.
And because the 5 of us sitting here, we're not gonna find things that we wanna do. I mean, there are increases in this budget of 300% on a line item, but the line item is only $600.
Theirs.
So, you know,
Yeah, it
we
jumps
don't
out
want
at
to
you,
spend
yeah.
time
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the smaller amounts that don't
That's true.
impact. We want to come up with a list of tweaks, of reductions that get us to the percentage that we're looking for.
Stephen, should we also expand that request to include the tax-funded portion of the capital request?
If that's what the feeling of the Board of Finance is, absolutely. If you feel like that's gonna be we're gonna get a meaningful
It's a
response
wider,
from that.
it's a
Yeah.
wider
Yeah.
pool.
Those are
Yeah.
larger numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, when I went over the numbers with Tony, in my capacity as chair, I mean, realistically, I think if you go too much below 5, you're seriously impacting services.
Right.
I agree.
So let's shoot for 5 or a symbolic 4.9 and see what he can come up with. Is
I'm in
that
support of
fair?
that. I'm in support of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Support that.
Okay, we don't need a motion or anything, this is a conversation. And then I'll take that request back to him, the notes will reflect it, Gay?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, here he is, okay.
Sorry about that.
And Mika, you missed everything, we're done.
We're done, yeah.
Forget it, we solved everything. What we're gonna do, based on our conversation, is ask Tony to, the Amity questions are gonna be directed to Donovan, he's gonna come back to you
Okay,
with whatever those questions are, and we, as a group, tell me if I say it wrong, folks, we would like to see what you can do to get this down to 5%,
okay,
quantify that for us.
okay.
We'd also like an alternative of 4.9%, just so we can see what that looks like and what that represents.
5% and then 4.9%.
Or 4.8%, just, we wanna see what the,
What it
what
would
the
be.
impact
Right.
is of
Okay.
getting it below 5.
You better write that down now, because in 30 seconds, she's gonna say 4.7.
I heard 3.6 myself, but,
Keep going.
Okay.
Okay,
All right?
got it.
And if you can get that, Donovan's gonna get back to you about any questions that come up with Amity.
Okay.
You're gonna, do you wanna circulate that? Well, I'll talk, when you get that done, I'll talk to you, we'll see
Okay.
if we wanna circulate it ahead of time, just so you know what those numbers are in anticipation of the meeting, if that's what would make people
I
happy.
think that's a
Any-
really wonderful idea, because we don't have the ability to look at line items, as you said, and say, what would the impact be at a department to take a, 300,
Yeah.
something that's, you know that, and you know that, because you talk to the department heads, and how
Yes.
much of an impact it would be for them. They could live with it, if we get that.
So is that reasonable?
yeah, and I,
That's
again,
very
I don't
good.
wanna say this, but I feel obliged to say this again, because Dwight said that, the Beecher budget went up by twice as much as last year, for good reasons. But maybe we could, and we're not allowed to do line items at Beecher, and we shouldn't.
But it's
But
just
maybe we
something
should
that
ask
maybe we
and
can go
see.
back and ask them, hey,
I
take a
think
look
so.
at it.
I think
See what else,
that
we're looking
process-
at ours,
Yeah.
see what you can do
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
will do
theirs,
that.
that's all.
I would include them as in the discussion of this 5%,
okay,
Okay.
okay.
if that's
Um,
okay with you. Not Amity, obviously,
to,
but.
to Susan's point, I don't know if it's too much, but I keep taking my little phone calculator to get the actual, because sometimes you see 300%, like she said, and it's like $2.
Right, right.
So
To
it's
get the
like-
actual dollars?
Yeah, so we could say, okay, boom, get a,
I can do that.
Right, because
That's what I kept going last night.
Yeah, 'cause
That's
the
exactly what I
increase-
was doing last night.
Yeah.
the increases don't
Yeah.
really tell you the
Right.
impact quite as much.
And-
I could do that.
Tony, we had some also discussion about whether you can find those funds in the tax-funded portion of the capital budget as well as operating.
I would. I
Wherever
could
it
do-
comes from.
Yeah, I would do both.
It's the same,
Yeah.
yeah. So
I would do
that'd be
both.
awesome.
If I can
Okay.
interrupt for a moment, I have a couple phone calls and things that I need to get back to, but I was just wondering if there was anything you folks had specific questions from my perspective.
Anybody have a question for Mika? We figured you got tied up, so we're not worried about it.
So, I appreciate it.
Tony did a very good job of explaining what the Board of Selectmen did, so I think we're up to speed and we appreciate the information.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
very
go
much.
back.
And thank
Go
you.
back.
Good to see you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. I could
all right?
I could do that.
And then we'll connect up on that and see where
Yeah.
we are. Because I think the reality is we can tweak this a little bit more. We should, but we also have to be realistic, so that's where we are.
And I think, the inflation rate and other things,
Totally.
we just have to be sure
Mhm.
we're doing
Okay.
what we're doing. And I have a question, Tony, and I am embarrassed to ask it, but I'm going to as well. how much federal funding does the town get? And what's
We-
gonna happen in the, you know?
So,
I asked the same question.
we get hardly any.
Good, that's what I was
We-
hoping for.
Let me qualify that. When I say we, I mean the town.
Right.
We probably get maybe some pass-through money for when they do extra patrols for like DUI patrols. That's not very much. We get bulletproof vest reimbursements. That's like $3,000. Not much. Very little. The school
That's
gets a
what I
lot
wanted
of
to know.
federal funding, but not us.
And,
I could tell you, as a matter of fact, I think I can pull up the, if you give me a second, I can tell you how much we got last year.
I mean, I can tell you intuitively, and I know this for some reason, I mean, compared to some of the bigger cities in Connecticut,
we don't
a
get it.
place like Woodbridge does not get a lot.
I was just asking, because if the worst happens, and I'd be interested to see what Tony comes up with, and how much Beecher gets in federal funding, and my question is, what do we do if?
I can tell you what we do. The Board of Finance has to make up the difference out of our
I could-
individual pockets.
I
That's
can
the
tell you,
difference.
I can tell you
I'm
that,
selling my house right now.
I can tell you this,
I'm gonna submit
That's-
a resignation next week.
that's
too.
one reason why you have a strong fund balance.
That's
Yeah,
why you have a
yeah,
strong
right.
fund balance, exactly.
That's a perfect reason for why you have a good fund balance. All right, let's see, federal fund.
I just want to make sure we have a strong enough fund balance when you come up with a number.
I'm not gonna include ARP money, because that's reported in here, but that's money we have already.
Right.
That might be a good question to submit to Dr. Byers as well.
Wouldn't hurt to ask
Yeah.
that question.
So, yeah, get that
Find
to
out what
To
they
Donovan.
get for
Donovan, yeah, to
federal
ask
funding.
her about federal funds.
1.2 million in total federal awards, but of that, $400,000 was ARP money that was spent for various projects.
Down to 800.
And those were one-timers.
Right. And, let's see, is there some more ARP money? 1, 2, 3, 4, another, I'd say there's probably $100,000 for like school lunch and child nutrition. There's, IDEA is another $400,000 or $500,000 there. That's about it.
So as a percentage of our total budget, not much.
Not very much.
Very
Yeah.
small.
And we do have enough in contingency
Yeah,
to deal with it.
could-
Yeah.
and fund balance would not be a big hit on fund balance to address that.
Okay, great.
Okay, any other thoughts, concerns,
Yeah,
issues?
just one more, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask Tony, now that this has been sent to all the departments, I'm assuming it's been
It has, yeah,
disseminated
you sent it to all the departments.
and everything else,
Yes.
so it's been sent. Did
Yeah.
you get any feedback? Is everybody okay
So
with
I've
this?
heard
Has there
from,
been any, because if we go further than this,
so I've heard from a few.
it's gonna start, it'll escalate a little
I've
bit
heard
more,
from
that's
a-
all, I'm just asking.
I've heard, that's a good question. I've heard from 2 department heads. And I said, if you have any concerns about your budget or anything that you think is going to impact your operation, you need to address it in a memo to the Board of Finance. Tell them what the reduction was, how it impacts your budget, and how it impacts your operations.
And either you like it, either put back in its full, or at least
Or-
a portion of it.
Or a portion, or some other.
whatever, some
Or
other-
like, all right, take some out of this account, but I really need more in this account. It could be a reallocation, like maybe, all right, I could deal without this next year, but could you
I
put
need
more in
more
this
in
one?
this.
Right, yeah.
And presumably, you'll go back out after you do the next tweaking to get it.
Same
down to-
thing, yeah.
So, but before
Because
the
it-
20th, the meeting on the 20th.
No, so
No, 'cause we
after,
haven't-
once you make your final recommendations on the 20th, then it goes to the budget hearing.
And then they can
Then
come
you
back.
can make more adjustments after that.
Okay.
Right.
And then that gets sent to the town meeting,
But that's not until April 24th.
right?
Correct.
So
Good.
make sure that's on your calendar. No going to London. Okay.
It'll stew
Too late.
for a month. It'll
Susan,
stew from,
procedurally,
That's right.
it'll
tonight,
stew from March 20th to the 24th.
That's
It'll
correct.
be out there
Right,
boiling
right.
away. It'll be
That's when we
cooking.
do all our outreach.
Yeah.
We make sure, we
Everybody
outreach, everyone
understands whatever
understands
it
it,
is.
correct, yeah.
Procedurally, tonight, am I correct in assuming that we're not gonna go page by page?
I'm happy
through
to, or we don't have to if you
41
don't want
pages
to.
of the,
My thought was
Proposed
not to
budget.
do that,
Okay.
because if we do, we'll be here till
I'm happy to
2
hear
in the morning.
that, okay?
I think it's just better to let Tony do the work,
Okay,
tweak it, certainly ask any questions you have about a line item or an entry that you think should be a part of a conversation.
Yeah, no, that's fine, because I did go through the 41 pages over the past
Well, see,
couple of
I
days,
did
and
too, yeah.
I did have a few things that I wanted to bring to Tony's attention. And is now a good time to do that? Or
Sure.
should we?
I think you should.
Yeah,
okay.
Certainly, yep.
Absolutely.
The utilities numbers that I see in both general administration, the center, and fire for a different reason, I question whether those are accurate.
No, they're probably not. And I can tell you why, because we're waiting for more information. There's a few items in here that are not probably accurate.
And,
Well, that's one.
And my question is not positive in nature. I'm afraid they're underestimating the cost.
Right. I think you may be correct. We're waiting for the new information to come out.
Okay.
And one is utilities, two is healthcare. We don't have final information on healthcare yet.
And that's what we talked about,
Yeah.
and that I knew that was still
Okay.
out there. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, those are the two that are,
Okay.
and to a certain extent, are liability, property, and auto insurance. Those three.
Yeah, because I saw the one in fire,
Well,
they dropped the natural gas from 80 to 40
Yeah.
as a recommended.
I remember that there was conversation from the fire chief about the cost of the new building. And I didn't know if the increase that they put in their budget was because of that, or he
Well,
was
part of-
aware of the increase in
Part of it
cost
was
of utilities.
Part of it was because he's having issues controlling his heat,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's one issue. The
Right.
second issue
Is
is
the new
that
building.
he's got the brand new shed.
So
which
he
is
was
almost-
accounting for that.
He's counting,
That's
he's
what I
counting
remembered
for
as
that
well.
too, because that's all
Yeah.
fed for the natural
Yeah.
gas.
I think there was some discussion
Oh,
about
right.
funding.
It's all fed natural gas and all that, the heat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There was some discussion about using contingency funds to fund a fix for the facility so that he can control his air conditioning and his heat and maybe not spend as much in his budget. Those-
Because it really is amazing. You can walk upstairs, it could be 70 degrees one day, and the next day you go up and it's 55. And you can't control it. They can't
And
control
that's a
it.
relatively new building.
No, well, it's 15 years old.
Was that one?
Yeah, Woodbridge,
It's not
that's
that old.
relatively
It's
new.
not
In
that- it's
Woodbridge,
not that new.
right, what he just said, exactly.
But I mean,
Good
but,
for you.
but systems though, but systems really do need to be maintained and all
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah, okay,
But I understand, but that's if we, whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
because that would, a little money here would save a lot of money
Correct.
later on.
That's the idea, yeah. Yeah.
How many square feet is that shed?
Hmm?
How many square feet is that shed? It's 2 stories, right?
It's about a little under 4,000. It's about 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, well, if that's a shed, I'm the Pope. Because I mean, really, it's huge, right?
Well, they have a training facility upstairs
Yeah.
because they got the balcony and they can rappel and all that and they can use that
Oh,
for training.
that's why it's so big.
It's a
Okay.
training
They're gonna have that
Yeah.
upstairs, and then downstairs is they're gonna be their maintenance, which they have in the old firehouse.
Yeah.
They actually can change oil, they have a lift in the old firehouse, they're gonna bring over the antique.
We
the
need a word
antique
other
vehicle
than, yeah.
is gonna be moved over there, it's gonna be parked and everything else.
We need a
so-
word other than shed.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a,
Or storage facility.
Storage.
I mean,
Storage.
facility, yeah.
It was, it was,
It's-
it is a
'cause it's-
training and storage
because it's
facility.
big.
training and
Yeah.
storage
There you go.
facility.
Right.
It's very impressive.
Put the word training first.
Yeah,
Put
training.
that
Training.
first.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's important.
Well,
actually.
Yeah, it was.
well, it is,
That-
and, you know.
Okay. Any other, did you have? were you
Yeah,
done? go ahead.
for police,
Yes.
the total police officer salary, do we know how many officers that includes
So,
salary
good
for?
question. So, the board eliminated the new officer request, so it's down to their existing staffing.
Including the 2 that are not yet
three.
filled, right?
Three.
3, okay.
Yeah, correct. And, mainly, the discussion was not necessarily because they didn't think it was a justified position, but rather, why should we increase a position when they can't hire the 3 that they have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're asking to fund the 3.
Oh,
I
of
mean, that's in
course.
the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 3 vacancies are in the.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
confirm that that was the number.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, who is it that negotiates the contract with the union?
Like,
Do we know that?
what do you mean, like, who do we use for our negotiator?
Like, what role negotiates the
So the union.
labor contract?
The town has a labor attorney, and we have a negotiating committee.
Is that the 23,000 and so that I see every year for labor negotiations or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
There's a police portion in their budget, and there's one in the selectmen's budget.
And then, as I understand it, that contract expired in '23, right?
Correct. That's
Do we
correct.
know what the status is of
It's
reaching a
currently-
new
It's
agreement?
currently in negotiations. We currently don't have an agreement.
Because that's going to be a big hike
Right.
when that happens.
Correct.
And I was just wondering if we're any closer to
I can't really discuss it.
reaching a, yeah, I figured as
And
much.
it's separate for the school. That's their labor stuff is
Yeah.
in their budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Recreation. For the part-time seasonal line,
Yes.
do you know what wage they use to come up with that number?
Part-time season.
Because there seemed to be some confusion over what minimum wage actually is.
So Karen did some research on this.
There is no advertised increase for minimum wage for next fiscal year.
That's what I found as well.
So a lot of the part-time seasonal, they used $17 an hour. So that, and the minimum wage is what now?
1659-ish.
Okay. Okay.
So we
they
backed
used-
it down.
They used a higher, he's assuming because they're gonna look at it in October, the federal government is gonna look at it in October, maybe.
You mean just set or reset
To set-
minimum wage?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you wanna make a bet?
Yeah. Yeah. We may be able to find some money there. Yeah,
So
somebody right there.
there we are.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're using
We're using
the accurate.
Correct. That's correct, yeah.
Thank you for that. And then parks. I see they're funding a new full-time position.
That's correct.
And as much as I don't want to do it, I don't think this is the year to fund a new full-time position in parks with the challenges that we have in the budget this year. Not that I don't support it, but that's my personal opinion. And my feedback to you as you explore your
Okay,
funding sources.
okay.
And
It's appreciated.
that's all, I think that's all the notes I had.
And I'll just make a plea. We do it every year, and we seem to do it at this meeting every year, which is to go back and say, can we perhaps, it's too late for this budget, for the upcoming budget year, but can we, once again, can I put in a plea that we go back and look for some economies of scale in terms of what's going on at Beecher, what's going on at the town, what's going on at the fire department in terms of more centralized,
Well, the efforts that have been accomplished have to do with what we talked about earlier, IT,
Right.
cybersecurity.
some, not all.
Some, not all. No,
Right.
some, not all, right. There was something, accounting maybe? There was another one you told me, I forgot.
That we do with the, we do some purchasing together.
Purchasing, that's good.
We do some accounting in town.
I just don't know whether that's an area that we can, I mean, it would involve potentially more positions at the town hall than in some of the, in some of the departments. And so maybe it's a wash, but again, if we could, and I don't know what, I'm only bringing it up because I always bring it, we tend to bring it up this time of year, and it's too late, and I'm sort of bringing it up now and asking you, Tony, when is the appropriate time to like?
So you should always, all year round, be discussing the budget. Because it sometimes takes a while to get either consensus or to get information or what have you. So it's something you should discuss all year round. It's never a bad time.
But is that a selectman
No,
question?
well,
or a
I
finance
actually
question?
think Tony does look for economies of scale.
I do, but
No, I do, I mean,
anytime,
I'm not saying, that was
I
not
mean,
an intended
I think it's
criticism
more
anyway.
an administrative skill, if you will, and I think our finance department brings that skill to the table. It's not easy.
No,
It's not easy. So for instance, it's my understanding that currently our IT encompasses town hall, correct?
Yep.
What?
Town hall, police.
Police, but not fire?
and not school.
No,
Not
definitely
school.
not school.
No.
And I don't know whether, at some point, whether if we bring in fire and school, does that save us money or increase our expertise?
Well, at one time, I think fire was on board. And then they went their own way.
Well, and
Am I
I mean,
right about that?
Correct.
I'm just sort of, I mean, it's same thing, maintenance. I know that,
That's all here.
well,
Not
the school has some stuff.
Oh, the school, yeah.
And, so, and, groundskeeping and stuff. And so I don't know, is that a selectman decision,
Sometimes,
probably?
Yeah.
But do we, as the Board of Finance, push them to say,
You
hey,
could.
maybe think about this
You
more?
could. Yeah.
I don't wanna
Or you
overstep.
might be right, it could be a wash.
Right, or it could be a wash.
I will tell you that I'm under the impression, tell me if I'm wrong, Tony, that town hall at the moment is staffed at the minimum.
Yeah, I think it's way.
Correct.
I think it may be
Am I
below.
right about
Correct.
that?
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, so,
You don't have to ask me, you can ask Karen.
And I'm retiring a year from tomorrow.
oh, congratulations, is that true?
Yes.
Oh,
I
good
saw
for
that
you.
there's some papers saying, no, Karen can't retire until a year from next year.
Good for you, good for you, congratulations. Okay, any other specifics? And by the way, I encourage you all, sorry for saying this, but if there is something specific
Please
that
reach
you
out.
want
Yeah.
Tony to be thinking about,
Yep. Or you need information, you want me to research something, just let me
You
know.
can copy me as well.
Yeah, because Karen
Either
will
one
be
of
there you go.
And I will say publicly, Tony's been very responsive, so thank you.
Right, so that way, you know, you don't have to worry about my question, I forgot about it, it's here, okay?
Yep.
All right, anything else to bring up?
Tony, I did get some questions from the fire commission about how costs like the radio. Is the radio is a shared service between police and fire, is it not?
It is.
But I think all the cost that we see on the operating budget is on the fire side of the budget.
That's correct.
Is there any way to reflect or split that
I mean, you could.
between the budgets? Because I'm like, when
The
I'm
main
just
reason
looking.
why we put it in the fire budget is because the fire chief was responsible for that project, has taken the lead on that project,
Okay.
makes a lot of the decisions on that project, right? So
Negotiated the contract on
negotiate,
that
help
project?
negotiate the contract on the
I was on that
project.
committee,
So,
I remember that,
you know, he just, it helps
I
to
get
have
it.
it in his
He
budget.
took
It's-
ownership.
The
He
only
takes ownership
comment,
over it.
right.
the only thing that I'll say is, as we're looking at which departments came in, with lower budget increases than others, when I look at, police, they only came in at, 2.42% increase.
Police
Ver-
doesn't have a settled contract.
Right,
That's
right.
why.
But using the numbers that we have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas I go to the fire, the fire budget's much higher, it's like 11% something.
Right.
Because the entire cost of the radio is, not just because of that, but all those little things kind of feed in. And I don't want us to reach decisions about, cutting this department's budget versus cutting that department's budget based on a budget that may not be representative of each department's share the costs. Does that make sense?
on a line item point of view.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, the specificity of the line
Yeah.
item.
There are examples of that throughout the budget. The human services budget has QVHD in it, but part of the big service for QVHD is building the sanitarium,
Yeah.
which really got nothing to do with human services.
Yeah.
Or dispatch is in the police budget.
Yeah, but we do that for other things like telephone and, everybody gets,
Yeah.
head count split of what,
Yeah.
You're just asking that there be a sensitivity to that.
I think it's a risk we have to consider.
Yep.
Because as we're looking to pare down the budget as much as possible, I don't want to unfairly punish,
No, I agree.
one department
Yeah,
versus the
yeah,
other.
Yeah, nobody does.
And as we find, not that this is the only example, because Tony just gave us a couple of other ones, but as we find things, especially that are material in nature, like the radio's $100,000, some odd dollars. So especially things that are material in nature like that, I think we should kind of pay special attention to those to make sure that they are as accurately portrayed as possible.
Right.
And we should also keep track of those in case we have a quorum at the town meeting and line by line, not knowing the background.
Good point.
Okay. All good thoughts, good questions, thank you. Anybody else? It's been a really good, robust discussion. I want to thank Tony for walking
Yes.
us through that, very helpful, and for Karen and Gaten walking us through that, right?
Yeah,
And for
thank you.
Donovan for getting Beth on the screen, thank you.
Absolutely.
Worked out very nicely. I think we can adjourn. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Go home.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Beth.